The metal collar around Daehyun's neck burned hot in the morning sun. He stood in line with 300 other humans waiting for the day's work assignment. His hands were covered in calluses and old scars. His back ached from yesterday's 14-hour shift in the mines. He was 28 years old, but he felt like an old man. The Valtrek overseer walked down the line. Its skin was gray and smooth, its eyes like black glass. It wore a uniform that shimmered with power. In its hand was a control device. One press of a button, and any collar in the group would send lightning through a human's brain. Daehyun had felt that pain before. Everyone had. You, and you. The overseer pointed at Daehyun and 2 others. Mine 7, move. Daehyun walked with the others toward the transport. He knew Mine 7 well. It was the deepest mine, where the air was thin and the rocks fell without warning. 3 workers had died there last week. The Valtrek didn't care. There were always more humans to replace the dead ones. The transport flew over what used to be Seoul. Daehyun remembered the city from his childhood, before the Valtrek came. Tall buildings, busy streets, the smell of food from street vendors. Now it was ruins and dust. The Valtrek had taken everything valuable and left only broken concrete and memories. His grandfather had told him stories about the day the aliens arrived. They came with smiles and promises. They wanted to trade, they said. They wanted to be friends. They gave humans small devices that looked like earbuds. Communication tools, they called them. So we can understand each other. Millions of humans put them on. Then the devices grew. They wrapped around necks and became collars. The Valtrek pressed their buttons and humanity fell to its knees in screaming pain. That was 60 years ago. Daehyun's grandfather was dead now. His parents were dead too, worked to death in the factories. Only his sister Heejin was left. The transport landed near Mine 7. Daehyun picked up his tools and walked into the darkness. The mine went down almost 2 kilometers into the earth. The Valtrek wanted cobalt, a metal they used in their ships. Humans dug it out with simple tools while the aliens watched from safe platforms above. Daehyun worked next to a young man named Bonsu. The boy was only 19, thin and weak. He coughed often. Lung disease, probably. Many miners got it. There was no medicine for slaves. My sister works in the data center, Daehyun said quietly as they dug. The Valtrek didn't like talking, but they usually allowed it if the work continued. She says she sees things. Strange things in their files. What kind of things? Bonsu asked, his voice barely a whisper. Records of other species. Hundreds of them. All enslaved like us? Daehyun's pick struck stone. But some records are marked different. Red symbols. She thinks it means those species fought back. What happened to them? Gone, completely. Not enslaved, just erased. Bonsu stopped digging. His face went pale. Maybe fighting back is a bad idea. Before Daehyun could answer, a crack echoed through the mine. Both men looked up. A split ran across the ceiling, growing wider. Rocks began to fall. Cave in, someone screamed. Workers ran in all directions. A boulder the size of a car crashed down where Bonsu had been standing a second before. Dust filled the air. Daehyun couldn't see. He couldn't breathe. His collar sent warning shocks through his neck. The Valtrek above were punishing them for stopping work, even though the mine was collapsing. Through the dust, Daehyun heard crying. A child's voice. Some of the younger workers were only 14, taken from their families to work. Daehyun followed the sound. He found a girl trapped under a fallen beam. Her leg was pinned. Blood ran down her face. The collar shocked him again. Move, it seemed to say. Get back to work or die. Daehyun ignored it. He grabbed the beam and pulled. It didn't move. He pulled harder, his muscles screaming. The collar sent wave after wave of pain through his skull. His vision turned red, but he kept pulling. The beam shifted. The girl crawled free. Daehyun fell to his knees, gasping. The pain from the collar was so bad he couldn't think. Then it stopped. An older man was standing there. His name was Jiho, a worker who had been in the mines for 30 years. The overseer is dealing with the collapse, Jiho said. Not watching us right now. He looked at Daehyun with sharp eyes. That was brave. Stupid, but brave. She's just a kid, Daehyun said. Most men would have run, saved themselves. Jiho helped him stand. We need people like you. For what? Jiho glanced around. The other workers were busy trying to escape the unstable mine. The dust was still thick. There are some of us who haven't given up, who still remember what it means to be free. Meet me tonight. Tunnel 16 below the old subway station. Come alone. Before Daehyun could respond, Jiho was gone into the dust. That evening, after the work shift finally ended, Daehyun returned to his assigned housing. It was a concrete box 10 meters by 10 meters, shared with 20 other workers. They slept on thin mats on the floor. There was one bathroom and one sink. The water was brown. Hyejin was waiting for him outside. His sister worked in the data center, a place where humans translated alien languages and organized files. It was better than the mines, but she looked tired. Her collar was smaller than his, silver instead of black. A trusted worker collar, they called it. You look terrible, she said. Cave in today. Almost died. He sat down on the ground. His whole body hurt. You should rest. Can't. I have to go somewhere tonight. Hyejin's eyes narrowed. Where? Better if you don't know. She grabbed his arm. Daehyun, please. Don't do anything stupid. If the Valtrek even think you're planning resistance, they'll kill you. They'll make everyone watch. I know. He looked at his sister. She was all he had left in the world. But what's the point of living like this? We're not living. We're just slowly dying. Hyejin was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data crystal, no bigger than a fingernail. I found something today. In the alien archives. It's encrypted, but I managed to copy it before the security systems noticed. She pressed it into his hand. I don't know what it is yet, but it's important. The security around these files was like nothing I've ever seen. They really don't want anyone to find this. What do you think it is? Maybe information about the species that fought back. Maybe plans. Maybe weaknesses. She stood up. If you're going to do something dangerous, at least have information. That's what makes us different from animals. We can learn. We can plan. Daehyun held the crystal tight. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Just don't die, okay? Hours later, when the lights in the compound went dark, Daehyun made his way to Tunnel 16. It was part of the old subway system, sealed off by the Valtrek years ago. But the humans who worked underground knew all the forgotten paths. Jiho was there, along with 15 others. They were all ages, all types. Miners, factory workers, even 2 who wore the silver collars of trusted workers. Welcome, Jiho said. We are the last ember of the resistance. Small, but still burning. What can we actually do? Asked a woman named Mireille. They control our collars. They have weapons we can't imagine. They have ships that can destroy cities. We can learn, Daehyun said. He held up the crystal. My sister found this in their archives. She thinks it's important. Jiho took the crystal and examined it. A slow smile crossed his face. Then we're not completely helpless. Information is a weapon, too. He looked at each person in the circle. The Valtrek think we're broken. They think we've forgotten how to fight. That's their mistake. Humans don't break. We bend, we wait, we learn. And when the moment comes... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone in that tunnel knew what he meant. Above them, the Valtrek slept in their towers, confident in their control. They had enslaved 400 species across 12 galaxies. What was one more? They didn't know that in the darkness below, something was beginning. Something they should have feared. Because humanity, for all its weakness, had one gift the Valtrek had never understood. Humans never forgot how to hope. The data crystal sat on a makeshift table in the underground tunnel. Around it stood 7 people, all staring at the tiny object like it held the secrets of the universe. Maybe it did. Minho adjusted the old computer screen they had stolen from a waste dump. He was a thin man with gray hair and careful hands. Before the Valtrek came, he had been a neuroscientist. Now he fixed broken mining equipment, but he still remembered everything he had learned. The encryption is complex, he said, his fingers moving across a cracked keyboard. But it's designed to stop aliens from reading it, not humans. They didn't think we were smart enough to even try. Hyejin sat next to him. She had come to the tunnel after her work shift, knowing it was dangerous but not caring anymore. Can you break it? Give me time. Jiho stood guard near the tunnel entrance. With him was Yoonji, a woman of 30 with scars on her arms and fire in her eyes. She had lost her entire family when the Valtrek experimented on them, testing new control methods. She never smiled. She never cried. She only waited for the chance to fight back. How long do we have? Yoonji asked. Maybe 2 hours before the patrols check this area, Jiho said. Maybe less. Daehyun watched Minho work. The old scientist's eyes were intense, focused. Minutes passed like hours. The computer made soft beeping sounds. Then suddenly Minho sat back. "I'm in," he whispered. Everyone crowded around the screen. Text appeared, written in the Valtrek language. But Hyejin could read it. She had spent 3 years translating their documents. Her face went pale as she read. "What is it?" Daehyun asked. It's everything." Her voice shook. "Technical specifications for the neural collars. Communication protocols, security systems." She scrolled down. And something else. Something called the Quantum Mesh Network. Minho leaned closer. "What's that?" "Every collar is connected. Not just to the control devices the overseers carry. Every collar in the entire empire is linked through quantum entanglement. That's how they control hundreds of species across thousands of planets. One central system connecting everything. So, Yoonji didn't understand technical things. She understood survival and fighting. Minho's hands began to shake, not from fear but from excitement. So if every collar is connected to the same network, that means... He looked at Hyejin. "That means if we can access the network, we can hack all the collars at once." Silence fell over the group. The weight of those words was enormous. "You're saying we could free everyone?" Daehyun asked. "Not just us." "Everyone?" "In theory, yes." Minho was already reading through the technical data. "But there's a problem. The network's control hub is on the Valtrek command ships. We would need to physically access one of those ships to hack the system." "That's impossible," said Bonsu, the young miner who had almost died in the cave-in. He had joined the resistance after Daehyun saved him. "Those ships never land. They stay in orbit, and they're guarded by weapons that could destroy a city." Jiho rubbed his chin, thinking, "Nothing is impossible, just very difficult." Over the next 2 weeks, the resistance grew. Jiho and Yoonji carefully recruited more members. But they were selective. One traitor could destroy everything. They chose people who had lost everything, people who had nothing left to fear. Minho studied the data crystal every night. He made discoveries that gave them hope. The human brain, he learned, was different from other species. More adaptable, more creative. The Valtrek's neural collars were designed for predictable thought patterns. Human thoughts were chaos, constantly changing, making new connections. "I think I found something," Minho said one night. "A weakness. The collars send pain signals to control us. But human brains can be trained to resist pain. Not eliminate it, but manage it. Meditation techniques, mental exercises, focusing the mind. You want us to meditate our way out of slavery?" Yoonji's voice was full of doubt. "I want us to weaken their control. If enough people practice these techniques, the collars won't work as well. The Valtrek will notice something is wrong. They'll start investigating. And when they do, we'll be ready." Jiho finished. They started teaching the mental techniques in secret. In the mines, during breaks, workers would sit quietly and practice. In the factories, humans would help each other focus their minds. It looked like rest. The Valtrek didn't notice, but Daehyun knew they needed more than mental exercises. They needed a way onto a command ship. He spent his days thinking about it, even while digging in the mines. There had to be a way. Then opportunity came from an unexpected place. Hyejin found him after work one evening. Her face was strange, caught between fear and excitement. "They're taking prisoners to Titan," she said. "I saw the transport orders. So? They always move prisoners around. Not like this. This is a prison ship. It's going to the processing center on Titan, where they break the most difficult slaves. But the ship has to make stops. It picks up prisoners from multiple worlds." Daehyun began to understand. A prison ship would have access to the network. For security, exactly. And it's not as heavily guarded as a command ship. Just a few overseers and automated systems. "You want me to get arrested?" Daehyun said slowly. "I want you to pretend to be arrested. We can arrange it. You attack an overseer, but not hard enough to be executed. Just hard enough to be sent to Titan for reconditioning." "That's insane." "It's necessary." Hyejin grabbed his hands. "You'll have help. Others will be on that ship. Jiho is already arranging it. 3 other resistance members will also get themselves arrested. Once you're on the ship, you'll have access to their systems. Minho will give you a device that can hack the network if you can plug it in." Daehyun thought about his sister's plan. It was dangerous. Probably suicide. But what choice did they have? If they did nothing, they would die in the mines eventually anyway. At least this way, his death might mean something. Okay, he said. I'll do it. The next week was preparation. Yoonji trained him in the tunnels every night. She taught him how to fight, how to disable an opponent quickly, how to survive when everything went wrong. The Valtrek are stronger than humans, she explained, demonstrating a defensive move. But they're slower. They rely on their technology. Take away their tools and they're just flesh and bone like us. Have you ever fought one? Daehyun asked. Yoonji's eyes went dark. Once, when they took my daughter for experiments. I killed 2 guards before they shocked me unconscious. She touched her collar. They increased the pain settings after that. But it was worth it. For 10 seconds I was free. Daehyun learned fast he had to. His life would depend on these skills. Minho gave him a device the size of a coin. It looked like a piece of scrap metal, but it contained sophisticated hacking programs designed to infiltrate the Valtrek network. You need to plug this into any network access port on the ship, Minho explained. It will only take 30 seconds to upload, but you have to keep it connected. If you disconnect early, it won't work. How will I know if it worked? You'll know, Minho smiled grimly. The whole ship will know. The day came. Daehyun went to his work assignment as usual. But instead of getting on the transport to the mines, he walked toward an overseer's station. His heart was pounding. His hands were sweating. The overseer was checking reports, not paying attention to the slaves around it. Daehyun picked up a rock. He took a deep breath, then he threw it. The rock hit the overseer's shoulder, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to insult. The creature spun around, its black eyes finding Daehyun immediately. You dare? It hissed in its strange language. Other overseers came running. Daehyun didn't fight back. He let them grab him. His collar exploded with pain, driving him to his knees. But he had expected that. He used Minho's techniques, focusing his mind, separating himself from the pain. Prison ship, one overseer said. This one needs reconditioning. They dragged him away. Other slaves watched in silence. But Daehyun saw Heejin in the crowd. She was crying, but she nodded. Good luck, her eyes said. Come back alive. The holding cell was dark and cold. Daehyun sat on the floor and waited. Hours passed. Then the door opened and guards threw in another prisoner. It was Sunho, one of the resistance members. He was older, maybe 45, with a solid build and careful eyes. Fancy meeting you here? Sunho said quietly. Small world. 2 more resistance members arrived over the next day. Mireille, who had worked in the factories, and Ki-hyun, a young man who had lost his legs in a mining accident and now walked on crude prosthetics the Valtrek had given him so he could keep working. Finally, the guards came for them. They were chained together and marched onto the prison transport. The ship was larger than Daehyun expected, built to carry hundreds of prisoners. But this trip only had about 50, all from Earth. As the ship lifted off, Daehyun looked down at the planet through a small window. Somewhere down there, Heejin was watching. Somewhere down there, the resistance was waiting. The ship's engines roared. They left Earth's atmosphere and headed into the darkness of space. Daehyun touched the small device hidden in his mouth. Minho had designed it to avoid detection, disguised as a dental filling. Everything depended on the next few days. The prison ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Titan was weeks away. That gave them time. Time to plan. Time to find the network port. Time to change everything. Surrounded by the hum of alien engines, Daehyun closed his eyes and practiced the mental exercises. The prison ship moved through space like a metal coffin. Daehyun counted the days by the meal deliveries. Once every 20 hours, guards would open the cell doors and throw in nutrition packs. The food tasted like plastic and chemicals, but it kept them alive. He shared his cell with Sunho and 3 other humans he didn't know. One was an old woman who never spoke. Another was a teenager who cried every night. The third was a man covered in burns from factory work, his eyes empty and dead. But Sunho was different. On the 3rd day, when the guards were far away, he whispered to Daehyun, I was military. Special forces, before the Valtrek came. His voice was barely audible over the ship's engines. I've been planning an escape for 2 years, studying their patterns, learning their weaknesses. You know how this ship works? I know all their ships work the same way. Automated systems, minimal crew. The Valtrek are lazy. They trust their technology too much. Sunho scratched a mark on the wall, adding to dozens of others. There are only 12 guards on this ship for 200 prisoners. They think the collars are enough. Daehyun felt the weight around his neck. The collar that had controlled him his whole adult life. They usually are. But you have something that changes that. Sunho's eyes were sharp. I saw Jiho talking to you before you were arrested. He doesn't talk to people unless they're important. You're part of the plan. Daehyun decided to trust him. In a situation like this, allies were everything. He carefully removed the device from his mouth, showing it to Sunho. This can hack their network, but I need to find an access port. Sunho smiled. It was the first smile Daehyun had seen since boarding the ship. I know where one is. Over the next days, Sunho explained the ship's layout. He had memorized it during his years of observation. The prison ship had 3 levels. The bottom level held the cells. The middle level was storage and life support. The top level was where the crew worked and lived. The access port is in the maintenance room on the middle level, Sunho said. But getting there is the problem. The doors are locked. The corridors are monitored. And even if we get there, the guards will notice us missing. What if the guards were distracted? Asked a voice from the corner. They both turned. The Valtrek scientist was speaking. Daehyun had noticed her before. She was smaller than most Valtrek with lighter gray skin. She wore a different uniform, marked with symbols that meant science division. Her collar was different too. A thin band instead of the thick control collars the slaves wore. You speak our language? Daehyun asked, surprised. I have translation implants. She moved closer, careful not to make noise. My name is Yuna. I am a xenobiologist assigned to study slave populations. But she hesitated. I do not agree with my people's choices. Slavery is wrong. I have tried to say this, but no one listens. Why should we trust you? Sunho's hand moved toward a sharp piece of metal he had hidden in his clothing. Because I can help you. Yuna's eyes were different from other Valtrek. They held emotion. Guilt maybe, or shame. I have access to the ship's systems. I can create a malfunction that will require all the guards to respond. That will give you time. Daehyun studied her face. Could an alien feel empathy? Could they change? He thought about all the Valtrek he had known. Most were cruel. Some were indifferent. But maybe, like humans, they were individuals. Maybe some of them were different. Okay, he said. We'll trust you. But if this is a trick, you will die quickly. Yuna interrupted. But I promise you it is not. I am tired of watching species suffer. I am tired of my people's pride and cruelty. They made a plan. Yuna would trigger an environmental alarm in the storage bay. The guards would have to investigate because it would look like a critical system failure. During that time, Daehyun and Sunho would break out of their cell and reach the maintenance room. What about the other prisoners? Daehyun asked. We free them too, Sunho said. All of them. If we're doing this, we do it right. That's chaos, Yuna warned. The guards will activate the collars. Let them try. Sunho touched his neck. I've been practicing resistance techniques for months. The pain doesn't control me anymore. The day came quickly. Yuna accessed a wall panel and began entering commands. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. A robotic voice announced a containment breach in the storage level. The guards ran past the cells, their weapons ready. Daehyun counted them. 8 guards moving together. That left maybe 4 elsewhere on the ship. Sunho pulled out his hidden metal piece. He had sharpened it against the floor for days. It wasn't much, but it was something. He jammed it into the cell door's locking mechanism and twisted. The door sparked and opened. Now, he hissed. They ran into the corridor. Other prisoners saw the open door and began shouting. Sunho opened their cells too, using his makeshift tool. Within minutes, 50 prisoners were free and confused, standing in the hallway. The middle level, Daehyun told them. We take control of the ship. But then the collars activated. Every human fell to their knees, screaming. The pain was incredible, worse than anything Daehyun had felt before. His vision went white, his muscles locked. He couldn't think, except he could. Just barely. He used Minho's techniques, the meditation exercises they had practiced for weeks. He separated his mind from his body. The pain was there, but it was distant. He could function through it. Sunho was doing the same thing. So was Mirai, the factory worker, and Kihyun, the man with the prosthetic legs. The resistance members all pushed through the pain. Move, Sunho shouted. Don't stop moving. They stumbled forward. Behind them, other prisoners were recovering too. The mental techniques were spreading. Not everyone could resist the pain completely, but enough could. Enough to keep moving. A guard appeared at the end of the corridor. It raised its weapon, a device that shot energy bolts. The bolt hit the wall next to Daehyun's head, burning a hole in the metal. Sunho threw his piece of sharpened metal. It wasn't heavy enough to injure, but it distracted the guard long enough. 3 prisoners tackled it. They didn't have weapons, but they had numbers and desperation. The guard went down under their weight. "Take its weapon," Sunho ordered. They armed themselves with the guard's equipment. Now they had a chance. The ship's structure was a maze of corridors and stairs. Yuna guided them through her knowledge of the layout. They reached the maintenance room after fighting through 2 more guards. By then, they had 5 energy weapons and a growing number of freed prisoners. The maintenance room was small and filled with pipes and computer systems. Daehyun found the network access port exactly where Yuna said it would be. He pulled the device from his mouth and plugged it in. Nothing happened for a few seconds. Then the device began to glow. Data streamed across a nearby screen. The hack was working. 30 seconds, Daehyun said. Just need 30 seconds. The door exploded inward. 4 guards burst in, weapons firing. Energy bolts filled the room. A prisoner next to Daehyun collapsed, half his chest burned away. Another screamed as a bolt took her arm off. Sunho fired back with a stolen weapon. He hit one guard in the chest. It fell, but more guards were coming. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridors. 20 seconds, Daehyun said. He couldn't move away from the port. If the device disconnected, they would have to start over. Ki-hyun stood in front of him, using his body as a shield. A bolt hit him in the stomach. He fell but didn't move. His body protected Daehyun. 10 seconds, the guards were inside the room now. Sunho fought hand-to-hand with one, trying to keep it away from Daehyun. Mireille threw tools and pieces of metal at them. Yuna was shouting something in the Valtrek language, trying to reason with them. 5 seconds. A guard pointed its weapon directly at Daehyun's head. He could see its finger tightening on the trigger. Time seemed to slow down. He thought about Hyejin, about Earth, about all the humans still in chains. The device beeped. The upload was complete, and then everything changed. Every collar on the ship deactivated at once. The pain stopped. Humans stood up, confused, touching their necks. The collars were still there physically, but the control was gone. But more than that. On Earth, at that exact moment, Minho received the signal. He activated the program that had been hiding in the Valtrek network for weeks. The program that spread like a virus through the quantum mesh, using the access that Daehyun's device had provided. On Earth, 50,000 collars deactivated simultaneously. In the mines, factories, and camps, humans realized they could move freely. They could resist. They could fight. The uprising began. Back on the ship, the prisoners overwhelmed the remaining guards. They took control of the bridge. Sunho sat in the pilot's chair, figuring out the alien controls with Yuna's help. "Can you fly this?" Daehyun asked. "I can crash it," Sunho said. "And I know exactly where I want to crash it." He changed the ship's course. Instead of Titan, they were now heading back to Earth, back to the main Valtrek command center in what used to be Seoul. "This is going to hurt," Sunho warned everyone, "but it's going to hurt them more." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Earth appeared in the view screen, blue and beautiful despite all the scars the Valtrek had inflicted on it. Below, on the surface, the revolution was spreading. Freed humans attacked their overseers. They seized weapons. They burned the control centers. 6 months had passed since the liberation of Earth. The planet was still scarred, still rebuilding, but it was free. Humans walked without collars. They chose their own work. They controlled their own lives. But freedom came with new problems. Daehyun stood on what used to be a Valtrek landing platform, now converted into a military command post. He wore a uniform now, black with red markings. He was a commander in Earth's defense force, leading strike teams against remaining Valtrek positions in the solar system. His ribs still hurt from the crash. They probably always would. Small scars covered his body from dozens of fights, but he was alive. That was more than many could say. Hyejin found him watching the sunrise. His sister had become important in the new government, working with other freed species to coordinate the rebellion across the galaxy. She looked older now, tired. War aged everyone quickly. "The council is meeting in an hour," she said. "They want you there." "Why?" "I'm just a soldier. You're a hero. People listen to you." She stood next to him, looking at the same sunrise. "We freed 43 species in the last 6 months. Billions of people, but they're not united. Some want revenge. Some want to go home. Some want to keep fighting. We need everyone focused on the same goal, which is ending the Valtrek Empire forever. The council meeting was held in what used to be a human university. Representatives from different species sat around a large table. Some were humanoid. Others were completely alien. There were bird-like creatures from Kelmar, rock-like beings from Thoris, even energy beings from the Shimmer Nebula, their forms barely holding together in physical space. Admiral Tajin led the meeting. He was an old man who had been in the Korean Navy before the invasion. Somehow he had survived 60 years of slavery and emerged to command Earth's first free fleet. His voice was strong despite his age. "The Valtrek are gathering their forces," he said. "Intelligence suggests they're preparing a massive counterattack. 10,000 warships, maybe more. Their target is Earth." Worried voices filled the room. 10,000 ships. Earth had maybe 200, cobbled together from stolen Valtrek technology and human ingenuity. A Kelmar representative spoke, her voice like birdsong. "Why Earth? Why not attack multiple worlds?" "Because Earth started this rebellion," answered Soman, a human diplomat with a gift for languages and negotiation. "If they crush Earth, they send a message to every slave species. Rebel and die. Then we evacuate," said a Thoris representative, his rocky face impossible to read. "Leave Earth, scatter across the galaxy? Make them hunt us?" "No." Daehyun stood up. He wasn't supposed to speak at council meetings, but he didn't care. "If we run, we prove they're stronger. We prove they still control us through fear. We need to stand and fight." "That's suicide," the Thoris said. "Maybe. But it's our choice to make." Daehyun looked around the room. "For 60 years, we had no choices. Now we do. I choose to fight for my home." Admiral Tajin nodded. "Commander Daehyun is right. But we can't win a direct battle. They have more ships, better weapons, more experience." He pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. "However, we have something they don't: speed and surprise. While they're gathering their fleet to attack Earth, their homeworld is vulnerable." The room went silent. Everyone understood what he was suggesting. "You want to attack Valtros Prime," Yejin said slowly. "Their capital world. Not attack, capture. If we control their homeworld, we control the center of their empire. We can negotiate from strength." "That's insane," Somin said. "Even if we could get there, the defenses around Valtros Prime are legendary. No one has ever successfully attacked it." "Because no one has tried," Tajin replied. "They've never needed to defend it before. All their military power is focused outward, on controlling slaves. Their home is protected by reputation, not actual force." Daehyun studied the map. It could work. It was crazy, but it could work. "How many ships would we need?" 100. Maybe less. Speed is more important than numbers. Tajin looked at the council. "But this means leaving Earth defended by only a skeleton force. If the Valtrek attack arrives before we return, Earth will fall." The weight of that decision hung in the air. Sacrifice Earth to strike at the enemy's heart, or defend Earth and let the Empire recover. Yunji spoke from the back of the room. She had become a military instructor, training freed slaves to fight. "I say we do it. Everything worth having requires risk." Slowly, representatives began to nod. The bird-like Kelmar, the rock-like Thoris, even the energy beings pulsed in agreement. They had all suffered under Valtrek rule. They all wanted to end it. "Then it's decided," Admiral Tajin said. "We strike at Valtros Prime, prepare the fleet." Over the next weeks, preparations moved fast. Ships were repaired and armed. Crews were trained. Minho developed new weapons based on stolen Valtrek technology. One of his creations was particularly interesting: a virus that could disable Valtrek neural implants, the devices all Valtrek use to enhance their brains and connect to their technology. "It's similar to what we used on the collars," Minho explained to a group of commanders, "but more powerful. If we can deploy it on Valtros Prime, it will shut down their command systems, maybe even affect the Valtrek themselves." "What do you mean, affect them?" Daehyun asked. "The implants are connected to their brains. Shutting them down suddenly could cause problems, confusion, pain, maybe death." Minho looked uncomfortable. "It would essentially enslave them to us through their own technology." Daehyun felt cold. "That makes us no better than them." "It makes us survivors," Yunji said. "They enslaved billions. Why should we show them mercy?" "Because mercy is what separates us from them." It was Yuna speaking. The Valtrek scientist had become an advisor to the human military. Many didn't trust her, but her knowledge was valuable. If you use that weapon, you become the thing you fought against. The argument split the command staff. Half wanted to use any weapon available. Half agreed with Yuna, saying it violated their principles. The debate went on for days. Finally, they reached a compromise. They would take the virus but only use it as a last resort. If they could capture Valtros Prime without it, they would. The virus would be a backup plan. The fleet launched on a cold morning. 100 ships carrying 10,000 soldiers from a dozen species. Humans, Kelmar, Thoris, and others, all united by a common goal. Daehyun commanded one of the assault ships. Sunho was his second in command. They jumped to faster-than-light travel. The journey to Valtros Prime would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to doubt. 3 weeks to wonder if they were making a terrible mistake. Back on Earth, Heejin watched them go. She had to stay behind to coordinate the defense. If the Valtrek fleet arrived while the strike force was gone, she would be the one making the hard decisions. "Please come back," she whispered to the empty sky. The fleet arrived at Valtros Prime on a day that would be remembered forever. The planet was beautiful, covered in silver cities and blue oceans. It looked peaceful, innocent. It was hard to believe this world had caused so much suffering. "Defenses are minimal," reported the sensor officer. "Looks like most of their fleet really did leave to attack Earth." "Good." Admiral Tajin's voice came over the communication system. "All ships begin the attack. Target military installations only. Avoid civilian areas." The battle began. It wasn't easy. Even with reduced defenses, Valtros Prime had weapons that could destroy entire ships with one shot. The human fleet lost 30 ships in the first hour, but they kept coming. Daehyun's ship landed in the capital city. His team emerged into streets filled with panicking Valtrek civilians. They looked like the overseers he had known, but they were afraid. They were running. They were protecting their children. "Hold fire," Daehyun ordered. "They're not armed," but some soldiers didn't listen. Years of anger and pain couldn't be controlled so easily. A Thoris soldier opened fire on a group of fleeing Valtrek. Daehyun tackled him before he could kill anyone. "We are not murderers," he shouted. "They murdered my people." The Thoris screamed back. All around the city, similar scenes played out. The freed slaves, now conquerors, faced the same choice humans had faced: revenge or justice, hate or mercy. The Valtrek military headquarters was a massive building at the city's center. Daehyun's team fought through its defenders room by room, floor by floor. They reached the command center where Valtrek leaders were trying to coordinate a defense. Supreme Commander Jarul stood at the center of the room. He was larger than most Valtrek, his uniform covered in medals and honors. His black eyes showed no fear, only hate. "You cannot win," he said through a translator. "Even if you take this world, my fleet will destroy Earth. Your home will be ashes." "Then both our peoples lose," Daehyun replied. "Is that what you want? I want you back in chains where you belong." Jarul reached for a control panel. Sunho shot him in the arm before he could touch it. The Valtrek commander fell, cursing in his language. What was he trying to do? Daehyun asked Yuna, who had come with the assault team. She checked the panel, her face going pale. "A doomsday device. It would destroy both this planet and Earth simultaneously. He was willing to kill billions of his own people rather than surrender." Daehyun felt sick. This was the leadership that had enslaved the galaxy. These were the minds that saw other species as property. "Yuna," Daehyun said quietly. "Disable it, carefully." The Valtrek scientist nodded and began working on the controls. Her fingers moved across the interface, entering commands, rerouting systems. Sweat dripped down her gray skin. One wrong move could kill everyone on 2 planets. Minutes passed like hours. Sunho kept his weapon pointed at Jarul. Yoonji watched the door in case more guards arrived. The rest of the team held their breath. Finally, Yuna stepped back. "It's done. The doomsday device is offline, but we need to destroy it completely. As long as it exists, someone could reactivate it." "Do it," Daehyun ordered. Minho's voice came through the communication link. "I'm sending the codes now. This will permanently fry the system." The control panel sparked and died. The doomsday device was gone. Billions of lives had been saved by choosing careful action over quick violence. But the situation was far from over. Admiral Tajin contacted them from orbit. "The Valtrek fleet has reached Earth. They're beginning their attack." Heejin reports heavy fighting. We need to recall that fleet now. Daehyun looked at Gerald. Call them back. Tell them to surrender. The Valtrek commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. Never. I would rather watch my fleet destroy your world and die knowing you won nothing. Then you're useless to us. Yoonji raised her weapon. Wait. It was Yuna again. She was checking another console. There's someone else here. In the building. Someone important. Who? Daehyun asked. Elder Velcros. He's a council member, very old, very respected. According to these records, he's been arguing against slavery for decades. His office is 2 floors down. They left Jarul under guard and found Elder Velcros in a simple office. He was ancient, his gray skin wrinkled, his movement slow. But his eyes were clear and intelligent. He spoke before anyone could threaten him. You've come to force our surrender. We've come to stop the killing, Daehyun replied. Are those not the same thing? Velcros gestured for them to sit. Surprisingly, they did. I have lived 400 years. I have watched my people become monsters. We were not always this way. Once we were explorers, scientists, artists, but power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We became what we swore we would never be. Then help us end it, Daehyun said. Why should I? My people will call me a traitor. Because it's right. Because somewhere inside, you still know the difference between justice and cruelty. Velcros was silent for a long moment. Then he stood slowly and walked to his desk. He pulled out an old communication device and activated it. His voice when he spoke was broadcast to every Valtrek ship in the galaxy. This is Elder Velcros of the High Council. I am ordering all military forces to cease hostilities immediately. The Empire has fallen. We have lost because we deserve to lose. We enslaved innocent species. We caused unspeakable suffering. And now we face the consequences of our actions. He paused. But the humans have shown us something unexpected. Mercy. They could have destroyed us. They still can. Instead, they offer a chance at peace. I am accepting their terms. All ships return to Valtros Prime. The war is over. At Earth, Heejin watched from the Defense Command Center as the Valtrek fleet suddenly stopped firing. Their ships began to pull back. She couldn't believe it. They had expected to fight to the last person. Instead, the enemy was retreating. What's happening? Asked Jiwon, a young fighter pilot who had been preparing for a suicide run against the largest Valtrek ship. I think, Heejin said slowly, we just won. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated. Valtrek forces received the order and stopped fighting. Some obeyed immediately. Others refused, believing it was a trick. But eventually, most laid down their weapons. The war was over, but winning created new problems. On Valtros Prime, freed slaves who had come with the assault fleet wanted revenge. They wanted to see Valtrek cities burn. They wanted to enslave the slavers, to make them feel the pain they had caused. Dong-Yun, a human philosopher who had survived the camps, spoke at an emergency council meeting. If we enslave them, we become them. The cycle continues. Violence breeds violence. Slavery breeds slavery. We must choose a different path. What path? Demanded a Kelmar representative. They killed billions of my people. How do we just forgive that? I'm not asking for forgiveness, Dong-Yun said. I'm asking for justice. Real justice. Not revenge disguised as justice. They debated for days. Some wanted to execute Valtrek leaders. Others wanted to force the Valtrek into labor camps, to make them rebuild what they had destroyed. Still others wanted to simply leave, let the Valtrek civilization collapse on its own. Finally, they reached a decision. The Valtrek Empire would be dismantled, but the Valtrek people would not be enslaved or destroyed. Instead, they would be held accountable. Trials were held. Leaders like Jarul were prosecuted for crimes against multiple species. The evidence was overwhelming. Many were found guilty and imprisoned. Some were executed. But the trials were fair with representation and evidence. This was justice, not revenge. The Valtrek people had to face what they had done. Videos were shown. Testimony was heard. Survivors told their stories. It was painful. Many Valtrek couldn't accept it at first. But slowly understanding grew. Yuna became a leader among her people, one of the Valtrek who worked to build a new society. We must remember, she said in a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. We must teach our children what we did, not to create guilt, but to ensure it never happens again. Shame can be a teacher if we listen to its lessons. The freed species formed a new alliance, not an empire, not a hierarchy, a council where every species had equal representation. They called it the Galactic Federation of Free Peoples. Earth became the symbolic capital, the place where the rebellion had started. But real power was distributed, with council meetings rotating between different worlds. Minho and other scientists worked together to create new technology. They destroyed all the collar designs, every piece of technology that could control minds or inflict pain for control. Some of that knowledge could have been useful for medicine or science, but they destroyed it anyway. Some doors should stay closed. Daehyun returned to Earth 6 months after the final battle. The planet was healing. Cities were being rebuilt. Forests were growing in places where mines had been. Children played in streets that had once been work camps. He found Hyejin at the old university, now serving as the Federation's headquarters. She was organizing a massive project, recording the history of every enslaved species, making sure future generations would remember. "How do you feel?" she asked him. Tired, old. He was 30 years old but felt 60. "I keep thinking about all the people who died. On both sides. Was it worth it? Freedom is always worth it. But freedom isn't the end. It's the beginning." She showed him plans for schools, hospitals, parks. "This is what we fought for. Not just to break chains, but to build something better." Jiho had survived the war. He was back in Seoul, teaching young people about resistance, about courage, about the importance of never accepting oppression. Yoonji worked with him, turning her pain into purpose, her anger into education. Sunho became an admiral, commanding one of the Federation's defense fleets. Not to conquer, but to protect, to ensure that no species would ever enslave another again. Bonsu, the young miner who had almost died in the cave-in, became an engineer. He designed new mining equipment that was safe, that protected workers. He remembered what it was like to be disposable. He made sure no one would feel that way again. The Valtrek rebuilt their society slowly. It would take generations to undo the damage. Some Valtrek never accepted what had happened. They lived in bitterness, believing their species had been wronged. But most, especially the young, embraced change. They wanted to be better than their ancestors. Years passed. Then decades. The scars of slavery faded but never disappeared completely. Memorials were built on 100 worlds, reminding everyone of the cost of oppression and the value of freedom. Daehyun grew old. His hair turned gray. His body accumulated more scars and aches. But he lived to see humans walking freely across the galaxy. He saw children who had never worn collars, who couldn't imagine a world where other beings could control them. On his 60th birthday, Jiwon visited him. She was a fleet commander now, protecting the border regions where pirates and criminals sometimes tried to restart the slave trade. She was the generation that had never known slavery, only heard about it in history classes. "Did you ever think it would work?" she asked. "When you threw that rock at the overseer, when you got on that prison ship, did you believe you could actually win?" Daehyun thought about it. He remembered being in the mines, the collar burning his neck, feeling hopeless and broken. He remembered the moment he decided to risk everything. "No," he said honestly, "I didn't think we could win. But I knew we had to try. Because living without hope isn't living at all. It's just waiting to die." "And now?" Jiwon asked. "Now we have something more important than hope. We have responsibility. We won our freedom. Now we have to protect everyone else's freedom too. That's harder than fighting. But it's more important." Jiwon nodded. She understood. Her generation had inherited both the victory and the burden. They would have to stay vigilant, to ensure the cycle never repeated. Somewhere in space, on a research station orbiting a newly discovered world, Yuna worked with human,